Okay, so here we go, creating a character for the Play by Post game Bounty Hunter the Guild. This is going to be down and dirty, so I apologize for any editing mistakes and so on and so forth, but this is mostly for people who are joining the game who may be new to Traveller and need a little help getting their Bounty Hunter set up. So here we go, Bounty Hunter the Guild. The quick version is this is inspired by the grid of John Wick, maybe a little Mission Impossible, thrown into the Traveller universe. Kind of like a Finder meets Wick. I don't know, something like that. But I'm really looking forward to doing this game with you guys. So we're going to focus in on how to create a character and following the character workshop narrative that I've set up inside the game. So we are going to begin by going to the character creation training area that I've set up for the game. Once you enter here, there's some introduction about the minigame. And some notes saying, hey, ask for a checkpoint once you've done some things. This is the overview of what we're going to be doing, and in this walkthrough we'll set up joining the guild, rolling for the past, the guild tests, and building your hunter. Dropping the game basically is the last step and will happen once you've finished and we're ready to begin our combined narrative. In this opening scene, it's basically asking you to set up your character sheet. So basically you're just going to open this tab here. This is called BB code. This is the first time you've been to a bulletin board based game. So I've already set all this up for you. So you're just going to highlight all of this, right click and choose copy. Then you're going to head to your area, which will be one level up. So this has already been set up for you. I've sent you the link. But basically right here, there'll be an area, and I'll have something witty here like, this is your character creation room. And only you will be able to, and I will be able to see this. So you might have secrets you may want to keep to somebody else. So I wouldn't want you to share that too early or even at all sometimes. So it'll pretty much look like this when you come into it, except your name will be here, and you will have copied and pasted that template. So when you're done, you'll have this big blank area. And we are just going to edit the dookie out of this all the time. So the very first thing that you're going to be asked to do, of course, is to give yourself a name. So we're just going to go up here and just type in the boss, which is my alias for the game. And we'll put the aliases in parentheses. And whatever name's printed on your Imperial passport. Something like that. Your age at the beginning will be 18, like all travelers, and these other things will fill in a bit later. So basically when you hit save, you can see that not much has changed but these couple of things right here. And that's all we're going to be doing. We'll be going back and forth to this page that has your template and completing it just like we would in any other game. Now the pro tip here is, since we're going to be going here so much, I would just keep this tab open and go back to the workout area in a new tab and just keep moving back and forth there as you go through the narrative of the character creation. So we've just basically completed this first step. So now we actually drop into the story. And you're going to meet a character called the Invigilator. He's going to provide the narrative, but basically the mechanic parts of this. And this is just giving people an example. And if you don't have any Traveller books at all, that's okay. I'll probably provide everything you need to know. But if you've got a spare dollar and have never dipped your toe into it, going to Dry RPG, and I'm not sponsored or anything like them like that, but if you have a spare dollar, this is a great introduction. It gives you two of the classes that are very, very popular, the Scout and Explorer, which are options for our game as well, plus mechanics and how to play the rules and even how to create a character. So it's a great value. Don't feel like you have to. I'm just suggesting if you don't have any. And of course, if you're an experienced Traveller player and you have access to any of the core players, I certainly will allow anything that's core, that's canon anyway, to be available during this game. So you know what you're doing. I'll just be around to kind of help you. But for this tutorial, I am just going to kind of assume that you're new to it and this is your first time through since you're listening to this thing. So now we're down to the area where we're talking about characteristics. Characteristics are, if you're a D&D player, strength, intelligence, and so on. Those basic core six that we all know. And if you're a D&D player and you haven't seen my How to Play Mongoose Traveler 2 for Dungeons and Dragons players yet, hop out there and check it out. You'll find it on YouTube, on a Traveler's Guide to the Third Imperium, or on the game site in the how-to section. It's not too surprising that there's some overlap there because D&D and Traveler came out about the same time, within a couple of years of each other, and certainly did play off of some popular themes of the time. So the first mechanic we'll open here is this idea of your character sheet, and that he's going to give you some information about adding your background. This is a narrative. It's probably the most important part. So let's go back here. And we're talking about your narrative, which we'll do anytime something interesting happens, is really the cool part of everything. Mechanics are interesting, but in our game, it's usually about the story first. So there's an area called Life Path, which we'll talk to. That's more like what mechanics I used. But there's a section here for your background story. It's right at the bottom. And it says backstory goes here. So in your application, you talked a little bit about your first 18 years, your home planet, and so on. And this is where you'll just kind of go ahead and copy and paste that stuff in. Okay, so I have this background fixed up for us. You can see it does not look that interesting like this, but once you save it, you can go back down to the bottom and see once you hit this tab, the story pops out. So this is something that will be probably the most important part that we'll be updating every time we do a pass through a term or something. And then mechanically we'll come up here and we will update this thing called the life path, which eventually we'll put in one of these little doohickeys too. And it will just show what we did and so on. So now that we're there, we're going to go back to our little story and see the next thing it asks us to do is to generate some roles. Okay, so here we are generating characteristics that you might find familiar: strength, dexterity, endurance, intellect, education, social. And there's another characteristic we'll use in this game called reputation, or rep, but that's assigned by the guild and will be adjusted depending on gameplay. So if you haven't done rolling on BB code before, hey, don't worry about it. I'm going to lead you through it right now. Don't make any rolling here, though. You'll need to go back to your character room where you've started your template, and we'll be doing posts here. This is also the place you can ask any questions. And the code, by the way, is right here. This is called BB code. 3-6, keep high as 2 is the code there. So we're just going to go 3-6, keep high as 2. So we're rolling with the boom. And we're going to use dice tags for that. And we want to do this all at the same time. There's another kind of more elegant way to do this, but we're going to do that 3 times. And then we're going to just roll 2-6 for the other 3 characteristics. And we'll be able to put those any way we want to. So again, I'm just hitting that dice tag. And I'm just going to copy and paste this twice more. And that's all we need. So this will generate what we want. 3 dice that will roll 3 dice rolls that will roll 3 dice but keep the best 2. So that should give us some decent scores, I hope. And then we'll roll normally with just 2 dice. So in Traveler, basically everything's 2 dice rolls with a few mods. So we'll go ahead and post this and see what my results are. So I have a 10, a 10, a 5, a 5, an 8, and a 4. Hey, it's not the end of the world to get some low scores and so on. Since we get to do that anyway. So 2 5s, 2 10s, an 8, and a 4. So what we're going to do is go back up to our character sheet. And up here it says strength, dexterity, and endurance. So I want to go for hunter. So I'm actually going to put all 3 of my highest physical attributes high. Now I have an 8 and 2 5s, so I think you need to be pretty smart to be hunter. My education, it's going to be one of my 5s. Actually, let's go. I want to be quick. Here we go. So 2 10s, 2 5s, and 8, and my social skill 4. But anyway, however you want to rearrange those, it's totally up to you. Notice when you hit save here, we can go back and see these scores. 5, 10, 10, 8, 5, 4. And I'm just leaving these as zeros for right now. So this is what it should look like when you're done. And if you're wondering what UPP stands for, at the end when I'm done, we're going to put a copy of those codes up there. What would that look like for right now? Again, just going to edit that. UPP is basically your numbers in order. Since you only get one character, so if 5 is a 5, A is a 10, A is a 10, 8, 5, 4, and no psi. So this is called the universal personal number. This may change if these change during gameplay, but for now, that's what I have. And this is what this top block is looking like so far. I did notice I could probably go ahead and put in that I'm playing a humani, or human. In base of operations, we don't know that yet. That's going to be assigned. I could give myself a description, and I will here in a little bit, but I'm going to wait till I'm done because I don't know how old I am yet. So I know I'm starting at 18, but every term is 4 years, and I don't know how many terms I'm going to do. So I'm going to wait and do my description at the end. But if it helps you to describe yourself at 18, that's great. Go ahead and do it. But realize that you're going to be aging during your training process and during your careers. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and that's all there is to assigning characteristics. Okay, so we're back to our story, and we just finished the part where we did characteristic generation, so I'm going to close that up, and then a little more of our story, and then a little reminder for our checkpoint. This is basically where you just PM your referee, that's me, and ask me to check and make sure everything looks copacetic. It probably will be, and I'd rather fix it though in little increments than to wait and try to suss it all out. So thanks for doing that. But basically we get to move on to background skills. So most story from our Invigilator, but since we're focusing on mechanics, we'll kind of skip all that and come down to home world and pre-career skills. So basically you get your education plus 3 and your education modifier plus 3 to for skills you picked up as a kid growing up on your planet with your background. And looking at my character here, I can see that my education is a 5. So I'm going to come down to the modifier, and the 5 is a -1. Yikes. Well, I knew that was going to happen. So let's go back here and see what that means. All right, so it's my modifier, which is -1 plus 3. So I basically get to pick 2 skills here. So I grew up on a mining thing, fixing stuff. So it kind of makes sense that I have some athletics or mechanic, or maybe streetwise or survival. Mining, I think I'm going to take vac suit and mechanic because that makes sense because of my background. So I'm going to switch over to my character and do a couple things. I'm going to go in edit mode. Now notice I'm editing that same sheet over and over again. Give myself a little bit more room here. Alrighty, and I'm going to go down, and I decided that the 2 skills I was going to pick up was for vac suit at level 0. Level 0 skill basically means I know the basic operation and I don't have to take the untrained penalty, which is great. I think of it as a broad skill. And the other one I was going to pick up was mechanic. So I'm coming up here to mechanic and filling that in. Now I get to explain a little bit about the life path. So I'm going down to here, and that's one of the things we're doing. These are rolled characteristics, so I'm not worrying about that so much. But now I'm just going to choose, just put background And that took vac suit 0 and mechanics 0. Don't need a dash there. All right, and I'll just keep adding on to this for every time I do something that basically allows me to pick up some kind of mechanic. And this will be kind of my rolling, what happened, what event happened that allowed me to pick up some skill. Notice when I say that, a couple of cool things happen. This long list of skills that I don't have right now has my broad skill. So I have mechanic and vac suit, just like I wanted. And I can come down here and I definitely, here we go, have life path. And this is my background event. And I picked up the two things. So I'm just keep growing that up. And I picked that up because of my story I've already written, so I don't need to add anything else to that. But every time I do something in my life path, I want to stop and reflect and add some story. That's all there is to background skills. So now we're moving on to story, where you're going with your sponsor to your actual terms. And there's a lot of information here about what a term is. Now, this is the meat and potatoes of Traveller creation. You can either go right into the Bounty Hunter career, which I've set up for you. So I suggest opening this up in a different tab and looking at it. So this is what we're going to be working through for a while. It's at least one term, perhaps more. So we're going to be looking at either Scholar or Explorer from the Explorer pack if you pick that up for $1, like I suggested, and it sure is worth it. Again, I get nothing out of that. It's just going to be nice to have a boiled down set of rules. Again, I can teach you everything, but it really is helpful to have it print and refer to it instead of asking a question and waiting. Almost everything you need is right there, and it's so cheap. So I'm assuming right now that you're going to take the Bounty Hunter career. So a career is basically 4 years, and if you went to university, that is your first term. So being a bounty hunter would be your second. And if you didn't go to university, or you tried to go to university and you didn't make it or whatever, this would be technically your first term. So there are an assignment. Now, the first part of all of these, including the ones you'll see in the book, is basically your qualification. And if you're coming to the guild and you have a guild coin, which is in our story, then you do not have to qualify. You don't have to roll 2 dice 6, add your intellect modifier, and roll 6 or higher, which is what this means right here. You just get in. That's good news. Bad news / good news, once you go in with your guild coin, you don't have an option of leaving. You will retire in the guild, or they'll exit you a different way. More on that later. So you automatically qualify if you're coming into the story, but you do need to choose Tech Ops, which is basically your, the tech people running safe houses, making that, dealing with hideouts, base of operations, that the guy who's in the van. Every team needs it, the techie, if you will. Focusing and double downing on Hunter, which is the field agent. And whether you're a hunter or not, you can't go in the field. It's just the focus. These are going to be your bronze. And then you have a fixer. That's like the face of the group. They're responsible for negotiating contracts, getting past things with personality, and so on and so forth. Now, all these can go into the field, but it's just a focus of the team. So you pick one of those, and you mark it on your character sheet. And we'll come back to the progress in a second. But since you've entered, and this is your first term, you're going to come in here, and you see where it says service skills. Everything below this is that this is your very first term, and this is true of anything you went into. You get everything that's listed here at 0. Corrals, deception, electronics, gun combat, investigate, and streetwise. Everybody gets the service skills. Okay, so I've added a little bit of story to go with my, it's kind of a sad story, isn't it, so far? But this is how it happens in Traveller. So I'm going to save my work, and let's see what we've done so far for our first term. All right, so I've got to add, I was able to add on my base skills, which I did, right? And then I checked for survival, but I didn't survive, so I went ahead and did this. And because I didn't survive, I don't get to do a couple other things. Let's look at where we are with Boss's story. The hunt had been going well, too well. Boss had tracked the mark to a rundown refinery on the outskirts of the colony. This is during his training. Confident he'd confident he'd close the contract cleanly. But he wasn't the only one hunting. The first blow came from behind. A pipe slammed into his ribs. Then he came, the boots and the fists. The Mark's associates had been watching and waiting. Bleeding, battered, he dragged himself out of the dust. One lesson burned into his mind. Next time, strike first. So every time we go through something like that, we'll add a little bit of story to it. So let's go ahead and close out the mechanics here. So what we've done so far is enter. Here's our first term. So we went ahead and gained all the service skills. We checked for survival. As a hunter, I didn't survive. If I did survive, I would go ahead and just choose something nice off of the events table. And since I didn't, unfortunately, I had to go down to the mishap table and find out what happened and deal with that. And because of that, I'm basically done with this term. But let's say I did pass. So I went past. I get to normally, if you survive, you get to check to see if you advance. And this is all based on reputation. I remember my rep check was minus one. Is my skills -1, so I'm like -3 on this check. It's not likely I would advance. If you do advance, you get a bonus check on one of the skills you're entitled to, one of the lists you're entitled to. So if I advance, I would come down here and I would pick from either service skills, advanced ed if I had an education of 10 or higher, and whichever list I'm on. For me, it'd be hunter, and I'd roll a 1 die 6 and see what I picked up and advance that skill. But that didn't happen this time, so we will take it from there. Also, if I advance, I'd get a increase on my rank, which didn't happen. So this one's basically over. This is the first term, and I can decide to be done and get out, or I can go for a second term. Now remember, I started at 18 and I'm now at 22. And if I muster out now, I'd get 1 roll for a benefit, and these benefits are pretty good. So I'm actually going to go for a second term at least. So this will start at this will take me from year 22 all the way up to 26. So we're going to see what happens next in my second term. Okay, so here we are rolling for our second term, and I don't have to qualify as a hunter because I'm automatically in. And the other career types, if you're doing a second one and you weren't already here, maybe I'm on my second term as a scholar. As long as you didn't get an injury, which gets you automatically booted from that career, and you have to pick another one, you just get to go again. So we're basically doing the same thing as a hunter. So I get to pick what table I'm choosing from, because unlike the first time, I don't get everything that's on the list. So the second term I've got to pick. So I can pick the service skill, and I'm seeing a mistake now which I need to fix. This is an improvement of life skills called personal development. So I'll go ahead and fix that. So that would be personal development. So I can choose from personal development, service skills, advanced ed if I have a 10 in education or higher, and then my list, which right now for me is still hunter. So I get to actually roll on that. So I'm actually going to roll on the hunter table, and then at the same time I'm going to go ahead and see if I survive, which hopefully I will, so then I can go ahead and get a life event, which is hopefully nice, and then maybe I'll advance or get a bonus roll. We'll see. But right now I'm just trying to see what my skill is and if I survive. So I'm going to go to my boss character sheet, and you can see I've kind of labeled it. This is my second term. This is just for me. I automatically qualify to pick up 1 skill, and I'm going to choose from the hunter list and 1 die. While I'm at it, right after that, I'm going to just go ahead and check to see if I survive so I can decide whether I'm going to cry or not again. So again, wishing me luck. Yay! So the skill I'm getting just for being here for that 4 years is Hunter 6. And then I did survive. Yay! So let's go look and see what that means. Alright, so I'm going to that, and I can see that Hunter 6 is stealth. A real nice thing to have for a hunter. Whew, good. Because I certainly don't want to be hit because I am kind of weak. And I did survive. Because I survived, I get to have an event. Now, event is 2 dice 6. And we'll see what happens. So we're going to go back to boss while we're at it. And we're going to go life event for 2 dice 6. So 2 dice 6. We'll call that a life event. At least I'm not being injured. Maimed and killed this time, so let's see what that was. So my life event is going to be, oh, that's called a crit success when that happens. I hope it's good. So my life event is I bring in an infamous criminal who's well known for the notorious crimes they commit. Yay. And I get a +2 to my rep. Thank you very much, because I'm down 1. And I get to roll twice on the benefit table. That is awesome. Now we're going to do benefits at the end. You get a certain number of benefits anyway, 1 for each term. This is my 2nd term, and I'm going to get 2 more. So this is actually really, really, really good. So that is awesome. So I'm going to go to my sheet now and edit. Like I said, we'd be adding the dookie out of it, and we sure are, aren't we? So let's go down to my life table. Capture all this goodness. So this is my 2nd term as a hunter, so I just went ahead and wrote that in so I wouldn't forget. And my skill is stealth, right? And then my life event was awesome. Right, and now I get to see if I advance in a rank. Now that is something that happens because I didn't have a mishap. So let's go back to our table, and you can see that in order for me to advance, I need a rep plus check. So right now my rep is only 1, which isn't great. Because if you remember what a 1 is, I'll say this so you can see it. A 1 still is a -2 to the check, but I'm only trying to get a 5. So let's just go see how that goes. So this is for advancement, so it's 2 dice 6. I'm -2 on the check. Success is higher than a 5. Just let me double check myself here. Yeah, on a 5. I might be able to do this. Let's see if we advance. All right, wish me luck. I advanced. Yay! So since I advanced, let's see what that does. So what is advancement? Well, if you go down here, it says ranking bonuses. I'm a rank 1 right now, which as a hunter calls my title technically is apprentice tracker. But now I am a journeyman stalker, and my bonus is gun combat 1, which is awesome. So that's my skill bonus. Let's go back and remember what's happened here. I got stealth, and now I'm getting gun combat because I advanced. So let's go back to my character sheet. Write that sucker down, lest I forget. Alright. So, advanced. Advanced to rank 2. Alright, so gain gun combat 1. So let's go up here. So let's go to my stealth, which I gained. Now, the next time I gain it, I can, if there's no number after it, you just increment it. So that's stealth 0 because I didn't have it. But if I get that again next time, 0 becomes 1 and so on. You can go all the way up to 4. You can't advance past 4 on character creation. So now I'm going to gun combat, and notice gun combat was a 1. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 1 here. I'm just going to choose energy. So it's energy slug. Are your two choices here really for gun combat. There's also heavy, and if you heavy weapons, and they have some of their own categories. But when in doubt, energy is a good way to go. Slug is the other one. So now your general one will never, if you have specifics under it, will never be more than 0. So anytime you get something extra, it will be something specific that will bump it up. All right, well that was a really good round, and now I have to decide whether I want to muster out. Now, keep track of your age, because that was my second term, and I was 22 when I started, and now I'm 26. So I'm 26 at the end of the second term. There's no downside except perhaps getting injured or killed to doing another term until you get to 34. So usually around your 5th term or age 34, whenever that happens, you have to start to check to see if you have aging effects, and I will do that. But that is my updated boss. Eventually, when I slow down, I'll add a picture here, and you can see that even though these physical characteristics changed a little bit so far, I'm starting to gain more and more of these. Now, I'm not in danger of having too many. There is a maximum. Whatever your intelligence and your intellect together is multiplied by 3 is what your maximum number that you can have here. Zeros really don't count. So until you start getting these things, you're not really going to run out of space for new skills. And then once the game starts going, you can do study periods. Now what I haven't done yet is now I have this whole term here, and I need some cool story for it. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this and come up with some story. So now I've finished my second term, and you can see how that worked out mechanically. But the cool part, of course, is coming up with a little bit of a story, specific generalities, so you can roll this into the game when it comes time, and also make some connections with other characters. Maybe I had a partner or somebody helping me plan that. So later in the game, we'll be able to use our stories to make connections with other hunters, so we can add each other to the other person's story and gain some skills and some experience, and it only makes the gameplay even more richer. So I am at my second term. I'm only 26. I'm obviously going to go for the third term because that first one was pretty rough. The second term, better. So now that you've got a kind of feel for it, I'm going to go ahead and do all those rolls real quick for you and show you the outcomes, flow it through there, and that should give you a good idea about how this works. So we'll muster out at that point and show you how we get stuff, which is really cool. So I want to mention at this point that everything I've done is detailed right underneath this. So once you've got started, these instructions here will just take you through everything I'm talking you through. Doing your characteristic roles, getting your career assignment, your skills and training, what to do through basic training, survival, events, advancement, all that stuff, and even what happens if you fail to advance. So this is all written down there. So hopefully between here and if again you're really new to Traveller, and this little demo will kind of help you see how it goes. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do the roles for my next 2 terms because I've decided I want to do 2 more terms, and then that should give you a good idea where we are. Well, it could have gone a lot better. So if you've heard about Traveller before, you probably heard this is a game where you could die. And we'd actually still have the Iron Man rule where that could happen. And if I had been playing with those rules, this guy would have died at the end of his 4th term. So let me explain to you how that happened. So here we have my 3rd term. So since I'm a hunter and I can't really get away, and I didn't change my things, I didn't have to qualify, so I just automatically get to pick a table. So I picked Hunter and rolled, and I got navigation. Now I needed to check for my survival, As you can see, I didn't survive again, so it means I had a mishap. So this is what I rolled up. I accept a contract, but it goes against my moral code, so I can't complete it. So I gain my enemy, and I lose some rep. So that happened. Then in turn 4, and I'm done. So there's no need to roll for advancement or anything like that. So in turn 4, I picked personal development this time, and though I do need to fix it here, I rolled and got +1 to my endurance. Fantastic. So I needed some better physical attributes anyway. But unfortunately, when I rolled my survival, I got it was pretty bad. So let me go down and kind of show you how bad. All right, so this is this is my term 3 where I got my navigation skill, but I didn't survive. And then this is my mishap. So if we weren't in the guild and this had happened in any other career and you're playing Traveler, you'd have to leave and do something else. But we're a one-way trip. Once a hunter, always a hunter. So that stopped. So now it's time for turn 4. So I took personal development. So 3 ended up being endurance plus, which was great. And then I do my survival check, and I don't pass that. So I have my mishap. My mishap was a 1. Okay, the extreme ends on the tables aren't good usually. And that turned out to be the case because basically I lose rep. Now luckily your rep goes to 0 and can't go any lower than 0, so it doesn't matter how many times you lose it. The bottom score is 0. You can pull yourself out of that hole, but the bottom of the hole is 0. So that's the good news. So I'm sitting at 0 again, and I notice that there is a option to roll twice on the table. So, all right, well maybe I'll do that. I'll roll twice, and maybe they won't be the low one again. So I rolled a 5 and a 2, but a 5 and a 1, and 1 being lower, gets even worse. So that's the one that would have killed you back in the day. This is nearly killed. So I have to reduce one of my characteristics by 1 die. A die is die 6. That's 1 die 6. And of course I roll the max, 6. And then I have to reduce 2 other physical characteristics by 2. Well, this is definitely his last turn. He's getting out while he still can at 34, I believe. And now he's going to muster out. And he'll get a benefit for the one. This works a little bit differently. Usually when you leave a career and you get kicked out, you don't get any benefits. But luckily for bounty hunters, you're going to get a benefit for every time you survive. So he survived 1, and he did have that time where he got a bonus for that life event. So he's actually going to get 3 rolls when it's time. So I'll show you how that's done. But as far as where we ended up on our sheet, let's go up and look at this guy. All right. So we started off, remember, at 5, 10, 10, 8, 5, 4, and we're going to end up, of course I'll have to edit that, at 3, 7, 4. My endurance was 10. I had to take it down by 6. And then I had to reduce my 9 to a 7 and my 5 to 3. So, oof. Luckily my intellect, education, and social were impacted. My rep, even though I get beat up, I can't get lower than 0. So I left that there, and hopefully I can dig my way out of this when it comes to my career. All my skills were updated, and it doesn't look like much now, but the next phase of this you'll see that I will have an opportunity to get 3 more skills from other players by doing the crossover, and there's also a little package of skills that we'll pass around that we know are needed. So there's still some skills to be done a little bit later once you team up with some other folks. Here's my completed life path with my different terms and what happened in them. And of course my story. Every time I went through a term, I added a little paragraph about what had happened, especially that last one. The job had gone sideways fast, like most of Boss's jobs. So if you meet this guy, just run. But he'd been careful. He always was careful, but sometimes the universe didn't care. A bad tip, a rigged safe house, and suddenly he was fighting for his life. The explosion tore through the building, throwing him into twisted wreckage. He remembered pain, darkness, the weight of debris crushing him, lungs burning from smoke. They found him, barely alive, patched him up, but something had changed. Boss had faced death, and now he knew just how thin the line was. That's it for Boss. Next thing is we're going to get him some benefits. Hopefully he'll do pretty well on that, and then we'll just set him loose. All right, so that's the main section of character development as far as careers are concerned. A couple of things I want to do is we've had 4 careers. I do want to come up and change his stats. So we are 3, 7, 4, 5, 8, 4. And I'm going to work on the description, but he's been through a lot, so there's going to be some physical things to remember with him. And then I think the only other thing we need to do is I want to add a few things to this section, but that's really it. So that's it for career development. He did 4 terms. All I needed to change his age. So he did 4 terms. So he's 18 to 22 was term 1, 22 to 26 was term 3, 30 gets him, 30 gets him to 3, and now he's 34. And that is it. Okay, so we finished up our terms, and now we have to deal with a few things. Hey, getting old is not a lot of fun. I do get it. When you get to usually around your 4th term, or when you're 34, you have to check for the effects of aging. So after our little story here, we're going to drop down and look at what those are, and it's actually pretty straightforward. We are just going to roll 2 dice. That's 2 dice 6 as per normal. And then for every term of which we had 4, will be a -1 to our check. And then we'll just do our table here. So let's just go over here. So I'm rolling 2 dice 6. I've had 4 terms, so it's pretty easy. No other modifiers, so effects of aging. And if we continue to do more terms, that's no problem. Just after each term, we would just check this, and of course that 4 would increment to 5 for the next term, and so on and so on. So it gets a bit harder not to hit anything on the table, but let's just see how I do. This couldn't possibly go wrong for Boss, right? And here we go. So my total is 3, and we can see on this table that as long as I don't get a negative or 0 on the table, there are no effects. So if I had, for some reason, rolled a total of 3 and -4, I got a negative number, then you see these things can be quite bad. But that's it for aging. Now that that's done, we can go ahead and check for our benefits. So there's some more story. So basically at this point, our bounty hunter has spent some number of years under the tutelage of other bounty hunters and his sponsor, and they're about to be let free. That's awesome. But they're going to get some gear. And what will that be? Well, you will get a roll basically for every term you're successful. That means if you had another career before you went bounty hunter, that you decided to matriculate out, you didn't get kicked out. And as a bounty hunter, for those times I didn't survive, I only survived 1 term out of 4. So I'll get that one, but during that term it was awesome. I got 2 more rolls because of that. So I have a total of 3 rolls here. And if you end up having a lot of these, you only get to roll in the cash column 3 times in a lifetime, no matter how many different careers you've had and how many times you muster out. But for me, I may need some cash, because you remember all those hits I took to my characteristics. I can actually buy those back and take debt. And if this happens to you, just holler and we'll do the math. But basically you can buy back, which represents surgery or drugs or those kinds of things, characteristics you lost along the way. And I lost 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points out of those physical characteristics. I could buy those back for 5,000 per. So that'd be a big chunk of change, and that goes to debt. So that'd be a big chunk of change. So having some cash on hand to pay for that, or if I want to do some additional things like buy special gear or maybe get some augments done, that kind of thing, having that would do. But I usually roll benefits, because look at some of the things that are on there. Besides the contact, weapons, reputation, Guild membership is, I got it's a special level of mentorship. Call that the inner circle. And then there's a ship share, which is basically worth 1 million credits if you buy into a ship. Or it could be residuals. That means you have ownership of a ship out there, and you will get a yearly payout for that. Or if you ended up getting a benefit boost to your role, for example, there could be something that happens to the life event that says you have an additional +1 to your benefit roll. It is possible to get higher than a 6 on a die 6 roll. So not only is there a ship share, but you could also come out with a actual ship. So I get 3 of these. So I'm just going to, you have to just declare before you begin what it is you want there. So it's a 3 die 6. I'm going to take this first one as benefit. Actually, I'm going to take them all as benefits. But for purposes of this, I'll do one for cash as well. So I'll just make this last one cash. So they're all marked, so no cheating. The dice, because you can't modify these suckers once they go in there. All right, so how would I turn out? Well, for boss, he ended up with a contact, which is nice because his reputation's pretty low. He ended up with armor, which has a certain value, so I can help you that when it comes time. And guild membership. Actually, that last one's cash, so we ended up with 100,000 credits. That's really good because I'm thinking I might need to buy back some of those things. If I had taken some debt, I could pay it off with that 100,000. So I'll probably end up getting some augments of some kind with that cash to kind of counterset the fact that my characteristics took a real beating with that nearly dying part. Well, that's all there really is to that, because once we are done with our benefits, you drop into you're officially done. So you're going to go into the bounty hunter's rooms. This is where all the characters will be listed, and you just will copy and paste your sheet there, and that's where he'll live for a long time. There is one thing though that's pretty helpful. You can do a couple things that are pretty neat. You can go into your name up here and actually click on something like this link, and it'll take you to a character sheet. Well, if you're not using all your slashes, I really would love you to go ahead and make a link right to the character sheet that you dropped. For example, if this was the character sheet here where it says reserved, and you wanted this to be the place where you go, all you will need is this link. So you just copy the link where your character sheet is, right? And the instructions on how to do that are simply right here. That's pretty helpful. So we're going to go to your public profile and then select About Me. So I'll do that for you. So there's my public profile. You can see this list of characters here. So boom. Since I haven't used this link down here, I can simply click on that and copy and paste where I want them to go, and then of course what name that would be. So this is where you take care of that. Very nice. And the last thing that you'll do is we want to set this thing called the dashboard. That's where our mechanics for battles and stuff will go. Since you're all set, just copy and paste this to the bottom of your character sheet, and you can put in your current stats. And so when you take your hit, and we need to know what your current endurance is or so on, and then what your new DM is because of that, then it'll all be in one place. All right, so if you need help with that, you can just let me know. Well, you have just successfully gone through all of character creation and the game story lore that takes you to where we begin with our other hunters that are going out in the world, freshly minted on their own, away from their sponsor. I hope this has been helpful. It's went a little bit longer than I wanted to because I'm talking in between. This really can go pretty quickly. Okay, so here's a quick tour of Boss. We are now in the Hunter's room, so this is where you'll copy and paste your finished product. And I've just taken what we had him in his personal room. You have your own personal room, and this is his public presence. I've added a little graphic here. Rough. Looking there at Boss. But we have his name, his UPP, where he's based out of, species description, current age, rad dose, physical characteristics. That table modifier doesn't change. I've updated his max point used. Obviously, I've got some things I can still add to him if he was developed in group play. As he's rolled out for the beginning of that set part of the session, these are the skills that he picked up with ranks, and also his life path, his background story, and what I added after our last little session, the little dashboard. And this will be at the bottom of his post. That will be update with some of the mechanics. So we have the story is what we see, and then hidden inside this little button at the bottom of the post, any mechanics we need to run the game. Well, that is a kind of quick tour, or maybe too much information. I don't know. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. When you play it like a game, it's very enjoyable. As a matter of fact, it can get quite addicting because you start out with this idea of what you want to be as an 18-year-old, and then life happens, and you end up in places that you can never imagine. Sometimes wonderfully so, sometimes not so much, but it always ends up with an interesting story. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope that was helpful, and I'll catch you on the other side.